Welcome to the student instructions for playing the simulation game. All the instructions and rules and how to play the game are on this video. To find a particular section, just scan through the video and you'll see headings or title pages such as this that lead into a different section. When you first open the Excel spreadsheet simulation game, you will come to the information tab down here. As you can see, there are an array of tabs which we will work through. Basically, this is our market. The market is built around a perceptual map, okay, which on one side has high style down to basic style and low quality up to high quality. Now, this positioning map has been divided into a total of 100 cells. The first one down the bottom there is a start cell. So all your products start with low quality and very basic look. To develop your products, you need to spend some money, which we'll talk about in a moment. But our good job is to target particular segments, and there are 4 segments on this particular map that stand out. Here we have consumers who are looking for very high quality and quite reasonably high fashion and style, and over the course of the game the center of this segment will actually progress upwards, so each of these cells change a little bit over time. Here is one that is very fashion oriented. Here is, we'll call them the basic shopper type market. They don't want much of anything. And this one here is fairly good quality. They don't really care how it looks. Now that's in round 1. You play the game for 8 rounds, and immediately underneath is the same positioning map, but this time for round 8. And as you can see, the market size was 300,000, it's 600, so it's doubled in size. And the centers have moved, so the fashion segment started over here, for example, moves up to there. The budget segment starts here, moves up to there. So we have cells that are growing because they are the overall market is growing, but they are also growing because they are the new centers of the segment. But we also have particular cells that decline. Obviously this one, C3, starts the game at 8,000, finishes the game there. So our job is to work out firstly where to compete, which segments we want to target, for example, and then also when, because these basically attractiveness of these cells, different positionings in the market relative to segment needs, will change over time. So we've got to think about when we enter the market or each segment, and which particular cells we go into. Also in the information tab we have the actual cost of developing a product. Okay, we start down here. We are basically at the start box there with a basic product that has very low quality and very low style. So we've got to enhance the product and bring it to market. Now the more we invest in it, the higher quality of the product, the more it costs us. So up here is the best of everything. This particular product is actually the highest quality and the highest fashion style look, so it's the best product we can bring to market. Okay, that's going to cost us 3,600 points. Now we come back here and we go, oh gee, if I do that, that's 15,000. Okay, that's 15,000 sales. Okay, we also have the ability to set a margin, which is based on a price, and we can set a maximum margin of, say, of 20 points. I tend to use the word points rather than dollars. So in a particular round, at the end, if we were the only product in that cell, we would actually make 15,000 times our margin, which could be 300,000 payback in one particular year. Obviously we have 8 rounds, so while some of these areas, particularly out here, are quite expensive, we have up to 8 rounds to recover the money. Obviously down here it's a lot cheaper, as you can see, because we're not investing as much in the product, and there is an attractive budget segment there at the end of the game and there at the beginning of the game. The challenge with that, of course, is this is going to be a relatively high competitive area because it's relatively low cost to push products into. So we've got to make decisions relative to our competitors. Now, to complicate matters slightly, once a product's developed in the marketplace and we just want to reposition it, it costs us 10,000 points per square. Okay, so both of these things work on a horizontal and vertical basis. So if we wanted to position initially in H3, we count, that takes us 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm only moving up and down or across, so I have to count 20,000 points if it's a brand new product. So every time I move in whatever direction, as you can see, that's an extra 20,000. However, if I bring the product to market, once it's there, it's just a matter of tweaking it and repositioning the product, whether I improve the product or not, as in go upwards or go backwards in terms of qualities. Okay, it cost me 10,000 points. Now this provides an incentive. Perhaps you wanted to position out here and this cost you, as you can see, 360,000 to do it in one go. But some teams, what they do is they bring it out to here, so initially 20,000, and then it's only 10,000 points on the second round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So it cost me 180,000 on the second move, plus 20 on the first. So in total, in 2 moves, I could get there for 200,000 points. So that is a when to compete trade-off. Do I do it in one go and hopefully take an opportunity and do well with the product, or do I do it in 2 parts and save a lot of money, but I don't get a great return until the second year? Okay, moving further down the information tab, I have another piece of information. Now obviously, when we start the game in particular, not all of these cells up here have competing products in them, and some will be vacant. So for example, if there's no one in this particular cell, consumers who want that particular mix of product may decide to move to an adjacent cell to purchase a suitable alternative product. And basically 25% of them will move in a direction provided there is a suitable product there. So we have a look at how this works. I've targeted 3 cells, so these 3 cells in the yellow color have products competing in those particular cells, and the cells around them have no products. Okay, so these consumers need to make a choice. So 25% of them will move into that cell, 25% of these will move into these cells. Okay, this one here, because it doesn't have a direct adjacent cell such as across or up and down, it only has a diagonal. Those sales are lost to the marketplace. So not all consumers will actually buy if they do not find a product that ideally suits them. So this one here, this particular cell, C3, will actually pick up 25% from them, that cell, and that cell, which would have a big increase in the number of sales. So if we think about that early in the game where there's less products, a company coming out here and putting a product out there may also pick up sales from these areas and pretty well double the amount of sales in that cell for that particular year or round. So there are opportunities as we go forward. And right at the bottom we have, of the information tab, we have the decision sheet that you will be given. Obviously you will have a team number, and each round from 1 to 8 you fill that in. You work out how much money you have to spend, okay, and you put that there. The amount of money you spend starts off at 500,000, so all your rules are here. So you start with 500,000 in profits, so that's sitting in reserves, I suppose, and that's your budget. As we go forward, your budget is equal to your accumulated profits, which is that line there. So if you get to the stage where you have made 1,000,000 points, then your budget is 1,000,000 points. However, if you invest heavily initially and have less than a small amount of money, or you have a loss situation, your budget is always at least 200,000. Okay, so that means you may be spending more than you make at some points of time. So you start off 500,000, then after that it's whatever your profit is up to, with at least a minimum of 200,000. Okay, so what we have to do is decide. We have two brands, brand A, brand B. You have up to 10 products in each, and they are linked together. Okay, I'll show you how that works in a second. But all we're doing for each round, initially it'd be a new round, but obviously in round 2 you put round 1 there and round 2, and you go, okay, where do we want to be? We've got letters and numbers, so basically if we wanted to target that particular cell, that's simply C and 3. This one here is E and 3. So that's all it is. So you type in or write in on the sheet where you want to go, letter, number, how many moves that is, and it's a good idea just to keep a track of your budget to make sure that you don't overspend. So typically you try to put as many products in the market as you think is worthwhile across two brands, and we'll work out why we have two brands in a second. And the other decision that we need to make is, instead of price, I'm not using a price thing, I'm using your profit margin. Okay, so what is our dollar margin for every unit we sell? Okay, obviously that will be reflected in price and passed on by the retailer, and we can set a minimum margin of 2 points up to a maximum of 20 points. And we also need to set a sales promotion. So this is basically used in store to add some excitement to the brand and to what we're selling. And we can spend up to 100,000 points per round. Okay, so we've got decisions. How many brands do we have? Do we have both A and B? How many products do we have? Where are they? And what's our margin for each brand? And what's our promotion for each product? Like I said, all the rules sit here on the decision sheet, so they're easy to refer to. I've mentioned most of these. If you don't move a product, that one there, it doesn't cost you anything in terms of moving, but there is a support cost in a second. During the game, you can move the products as many times as you like. Each product you have in the game, from the round it gets introduced, requires a 2,000 point support cost. Okay, so we weigh that up. Okay, I've talked about budgeting, etc. Once a product is in the market, you cannot withdraw it. If you accidentally put it into J1, which is the start, you'll get 0 sales for that. Okay, very important. When you are entering previous years, make sure you keep your products on the same level. So if this one is A1 and it still remains A1, make sure you keep it on the same line, because potentially the computer or the software will think if you write A1 here, then A2 here, you have deliberately moved it and you'll be charged the 10,000 points per square. Okay, so that's the start of the market. Okay, let's now move to the next tab of the spreadsheet, and let's work out how consumers choose between products and brands in the marketplace. So consumer behavior is on the CB tab. Okay, and this will bring this up. How consumers make their purchase decisions in each cell. There are 4 consideration points for consumers. Again, we're structured around this positioning map to get a sense of how they make these decisions. So basically, each cell adds up to 100. So let's pick A5. Consumers who are looking for a product with the A5 qualities will make their decision based on 20% on brand quality, 60% on brand clarity, 10% on relatively price or or a price premium, and 10% on the various deals and offers in the marketplace. So as you can see, when we look at brand quality, typically products that are higher quality, as you can see, this is the highest quality along here, that becomes far more important. These consumers are seeking that out intentionally. When it comes to brand clarity, which is the relatively closeness of your set of products, it's the consumers who are more interested in the fashion and the style and look of it rather than the quality aspects. Price is down here. People who aren't after a lot, they're just after a relatively budget product. So the lower quality and the lower style of the product, the more price is important. And then for sales promotion or the deal, the offer, typically we have consumers in the middle here who are a little bit indifferent to other things. So they're not necessarily after high quality, they're after a middle of the road type product. So they're more attracted to deals and offers. So each of these cells, when you add the 4 factors up, add up to 100 points. Okay, so let's work out what's happening. Basically, we will have for every one of your products a score that is based around a brand. Okay, so your brand will accumulate quality points. Okay, so let's just have an example here. So your brand has quality points of 40. Now, the maximum always is 100. So 100 is the ideal, but obviously that's not going to be possible when you're running a set of products because some will be different positions, etc. Brand clarity, price index, so how competitive you are. So the lower your margin you have, the higher index, and the more you spend on sales promotion, the more you index. So basically the way it works, we're using C5 as an example. That's our brand and our products. That's our competitors. And that's the importance, based on these numbers up above here, of how consumers make decisions. So those always add up to 100. And then it's a simple multiplication factor, 40 times the 20% importance. We score 8 there, we score 10 there, etc. And for our particular product in that one cell, so we could have products in this brand that are in different cells, but this one's in C5, we score 27 points. Let's assume we only have one competitor. They score 60 points, so they are a superior product. The way the simulation game works, it adds up. Okay, so there are 87 points of value being offered in that particular cell, and that means that we represent about 31% of value, so we win 31% of the sales. Okay, so whatever the sales volume is, that is our sales number, and then that gets multiplied by our price margin. Okay, down the bottom here, over time we have what's called a experience curve benefit, not directly related to consumer behavior, but it's based on sales volumes. So basically over time, the more volume we sell, we get more experience in the product, and we actually have an extra margin on top of what you decide. So this is actually the margin that you put in play is passed on to retailers, who then pass on the margin plus their margin to the end consumer. But this experience curve is actually representative of our reducing our costs over time. And you may reduce costs by up to $3 over time. Okay, and there's this, basically as we run through sales and we get more sales, depending on how many teams are in it, so there are 10 teams, if we manage to get finally to sell 500,000 units over the course of the game, we'll actually have an extra $2.50 per sale. Okay, so it's not exactly consumer behavior, but it sort of relates to the results. Okay, let's turn to the next tab, which is your decision sheet. This is the decision sheet that is built into the spreadsheet, and this is a very important sheet that you will use to help guide your decisions. This is the decision sheet tab, as you can see down the bottom. This is the area where you enter your decisions. Obviously, when you play the game in class, you hand a decision sheet to the lecturer, but in this case, you'll be planning and designing your strategy based off this sheet. As you can see, we've got 10 teams that go across the top, and we've got brand A, brand B, you've got up to 10 products in each. And this is round 1, and as we go down, we've got round 2 underneath, etc., all the way to round 8. Okay, so what happens is you can only enter here, letters L and N, letters and numbers. I'm going to come down to brand B. You normally would start with brand A, but it really doesn't matter. And I'm going to bring it down here just so we can see what's happening. So I'm going to pick a fairly mid-range type of cell, and so we want to target F6. So that's roughly in the middle. And as you can see, we have a brand quality score, maximum being 100. Okay, now the most impressive product we can have is A10. So I'll put that one in the company or team 2. So that's the best product you can have. That gives you 100 points. And the weakest product you can have is J2 or I1. And you can see that we start with 15 points provided we've got a product in the marketplace. Now what happens is it's the quality for the whole brand. So if this team here brought out a 10, which would normally score them 100 points, the average of the brand is going to be somewhere in the middle. So we'll just do that. 10. So you can see the average of a strong product and a weak product gives an average score for the brand somewhere in the middle. Now underneath the brand quality score, we have brand clarity, and we can see for team 3 they have only 15 points. That's because they've got a really strong product with high quality and style, and then a really weak product. So consumers don't really get a sense of what the brand is about. Okay, these two here are sitting at 100% because they've only got one product, so it's pretty clear. If I was to add other products around that, so B10 and A9, okay, what we see is very high quality. They are all in the top right-hand quadrant, so they're very strong products and very expensive to develop. And it's a fairly clear brand. They all tend to be associated around the same point. Now, if we come over here, just to illustrate the example further, say we just put in a series of products that are a little bit all over the place. Okay, they're all sort of mid-range products. So we sort of get a mid-range quality and sort of a mid-range clarity. They're sort of around the board, around the different positioning cells. So as you decide to introduce a product into the brand, it will impact quality and clarity, which obviously then impacts your ability to compete in particular cells, keeping in mind that these 4 attributes, as we discussed with consumer behavior, vary in their importance depending on where you are. So introducing a product typically increases your income because you have another product to sell, but it also could damage your brand. So this one here is at 96% and 90% for clarity. So they introduced a very weak product for some reason. Let's make that I1. You can see that their quality has dropped from 96 to 76. It's had because they have a very weak product in their lineup, so the perception of the overall brand quality has been reduced. And as you can see, they had 90% there, and now their clarity has reduced dramatically. So they would be probably better off not putting that product there, but bringing that product in as a second brand. So I put the same product up there, but it's under a different brand name. Okay, so you can see brand A, only 15 points for quality, but our brand that we have built into the I suppose, the high end of the market, we've protected its quality and its clarity. Okay, now, so far I haven't put in a profit margin. Okay, and down here we've got a few warning messages. Check margin, check margin. Okay, so that's going to tell me for this one, for it comes up twice, I have no profit margin for brand A or for brand B. So you'll get sales, but you just won't get any revenue. So we've got to put some money in there. And we're also over budget. Remember, we start with 500,000, and I've just made up some numbers here. So we've spent too much. Okay, so I would need to adjust that. Okay, we're still over. Okay, and let's just bring this one back a little bit. I'm still over. Okay, let's get rid of this product up the top here. Oh, still over. So yeah, we've got to get back under 500,000. So let's make that 8. Okay, so we're right on budget, and you can see it gives us an OK symbol. And that's a little formula there. If it's more than 500,000, we've got a problem. So you've got to work within your budget, but as you can see, our quality and clarity isn't as high as it was before. So we've got to weigh that up. Okay, so it's one of the decisions you have to make. Okay, I'm going to enter a profit margin. These are in brand B so we can see them. So let's just put in 10. Let's put 20 over here and 2 just for example. Okay, so what we're looking at is anytime you see 110, obviously it can only go to 100. It means that we don't have anything in there. So 110 is also a warning sign, or it's a brand that hasn't been activated as yet. So it's a neutral brand, so it doesn't exist. Okay, so again, we're scoring best is 100, worst is 10. So that's the lowest margin you can have without the extra economies of scale and experience curve benefit we talked about previously. So we only take $2 per, or 2 points per item we sell, per unit. So in the market, that gets passed on as a price advantage. So that's seen as, gee, that's from a price premium view of the consumer, that is good value. This one here is 20, that's the most we can have. So from a consumer's viewpoint, it's more expensive. Okay, so keep in mind you're generally competing on the same style of product. You're competing in the same positioning cells, and typically you'd have similar values. So you've got to work out how important is price, and obviously at the budget end of the market it's quite important. Elsewhere it's less important. Okay, the other thing is sales promotion, and we put in an amount up to 100,000 points. So I will put, just for example, we'll probably overspend, but 100,000 there, 0 there, and 50,000 there. Okay, so I'm over budget because I've added that amount, but I'll take that in a second. It's just an example of how the index works. Okay, sales promotion starts off at a maximum of 40 points in your first round. You have to keep building it. Okay, the way it works is it picks up, as you can see, 40% of that, and so it's 1 point is worth 2,500 points up here. So you spend 2,500, you get a single point, as you can see. Okay, so that's the straight ratio. So the most we can get is 40 points in the first year. If I keep adding to that, okay, if I go down to round 2, I haven't put the products in, but it carries down 75% of our promotion. So again, I'll put in, there's nothing here, but we'll still put in 100,000. Now we're at 70. Okay, so I'm at the maximum. Okay, now it's going to come down again, and it's carried down a proportion. So it basically works out 40 points become 30 points, become 20 points, become 10. So there's some erosion to it. But after 4 years, if I keep doing this, I get to 90, and then 4 years of maximum sales promotion, okay, I get to 100 points. Okay, so I can maintain, that's probably the only index we can maintain easily, but it takes time. at 100. We can also maintain price at 100 if we have the cheapest, but whether that's in your interest or not. Okay, so it takes a while to build up, and the market gets a sense of, gee, that's an exciting product. Okay, and they always have special deals. Okay, so it's something you need to build over time. So if you plan to do it, you plan to compete in the middle stage of the market, where sales promotion is important, you'll need to be thinking about that relatively early on in the game. Okay, because it's cumulative. Let's say I skipped a year, so I didn't have enough budget then. Okay, I still carry 30 points, and 20 points will carry forward. I've added another 40 and my 20 carry forward. So just think of it that 75% of what I had typically carries through. Okay, you can see the formula there if you're overly interested. Okay, I can't change that cell, by the way. So if I try to type on that, anywhere you shouldn't type or where there's a formula is protected. So you really can't make a mistake. So you just play around with your decisions here and see what happens. Okay, and you've got to test them before you hand your decision sheet to your lecturer to ensure that you are not over budget. So I'm over 460 in positioning moves. That calculates automatically for you. Okay, that 20,000 points per square, or 10,000 if it's a reposition in later rounds. So I'm 10,000 over, so I can either bring that one back, which I will do, and now I'm back under budget. Okay, so that's what we've got to be looking at. Make sure we don't overspend. Okay. Okay, let's now go forward into more complex decision making. Let's start looking at various forecast and scenario testings that we can do, and also look at the tools tab. Okay, when we're thinking about making a decision for next year, there are two things we can do. Obviously, we'd have a lot more results here from different teams, but say we had this in play, what we could do is take what we have there, what the market is already, copy it, and then it's in brand B, and then paste it in, all right? And we are going to see, when we go to the results page, we haven't done that yet, we are going to see where the market will be in its entirety for next round if nothing changes. Okay, that's important because remember, on the information tab, the market size is changing and the values of each cell are changing. So therefore, the decisions will never be the same. We make the same decision, but the marketplace changes, so the results will change. So to help us plan, we've got the forecast and tools. Okay, forecast allows us to compare 3 companies or 3 brands. The reason it's only 3 is typically we would have key competitors that are competing in a particular space against our brand rather than the whole market. So we might be targeting a particular segment, and we look at what the issues are or who the players are there. So let's say it's up towards the larger end. We put A10 there, and C8, I'll just put those. As you can see, what happens automatically, it calculates the various scores. I haven't put a profit margin in, I'll put something in, 15. Okay, so it's not necessarily a budgeting tool, but it provides all the numbers that we need. And just say there was an existing competitor in the upper end market, and that's what they had. So we might be going, okay, that's an attractive segment. What happens if we enter that? Let's enter A8 because nobody's there. And let's also challenge them in A10. Okay, now we need to put our price in. Maybe we come in slightly cheaper at $14, and maybe it's not that responsive to sales promotion, so I'll only put a little bit in there. Okay, so we've got our numbers, their numbers. At that end of the market, brand quality is quite important, so we have a little bit higher quality, as you can see, and a little bit higher clarity, and a little bit better on price. So we should do better against our competitor. Okay, so A10 versus A10, which is product 2. You can see we have a slightly better sales result. Okay, they have 3 products in that segment. We only have 2. Okay, so total sales is overall is not good. So we've got to go, okay, how do we compete better? Do we take them on instead of 8? Do we take them on at 9? What if we took them on in all 3 spots? Okay, so I've just duplicated what we have, and we can see that they are doing slightly better than us. Okay, so we've got to work out why that is the case. And when we come down here, we obviously got the same product, so we've got same brand quality and clarity. So consumers see exactly the same value in terms of the brand. So then they have to go to the other aspects. So we've got a slight advantage in price premium, 5 points, but they have a bigger advantage in sales promotion. Now, this end of the market, they're less responsive to price and promotion, but it's the only factor we're giving them. So there is a minor differential. Okay, so let's say we changed that and we went 100,000. Okay, and we changed price to 10. Okay, so suddenly we've got, a fairly decent increase. Okay, but obviously this is quite expensive and we're reducing our margin. So again, we've got to weigh up whether that's worthwhile or not. Okay, so if I just reset that back to where we were, so we had that roughly even position, they're making more money than us. What would happen if we increase money? Okay, so they're selling more, but we're actually doing a little bit more revenue. What happens if we went to $18? Again, they're selling a little bit more because it's a differential, but we're making more profit, which is more important. Okay, what if we try to increase our clarity, our quality, by making that a little bit higher? So maybe we bring in, change that to C10. Okay, so obviously these two products don't compete. We get all the money in C10, which looks pretty good there. But if we look at the other two, we've got exactly the same sales here and exactly the same sales there. Why is that the case? Okay, we've got better quality, we've got better clarity, so that brings us some business. But then we lose it back because of pricing and sales promotion. So again, okay, let's make that $16. And you can see the degree of responsiveness. Now, we could put a third player in there if we wanted to. Down the bottom here is a top-up tool. So I've got this as set at year 1. So say it was year 3. Okay, so you see all the numbers have changed. Okay, because we've gone forward in time, so we're actually able to, whatever year we put in, we can actually see what's going to happen down the track in this set of competitors. But we have this top-up thing, okay, because basically we are getting sales promotion building. So say in our decision sheet we actually had 30 points, it's only showing 20 there. We would have to manually adjust it and bring it back to 30, so it actually reflects what would happen in the game. Okay, so let's reset that, and let's assume we're at the discount end of the market, J2 and I1, and I'll just put them up here for everybody. Okay, let's pretend there's 3 players down here. This is the market that is quite price responsive. Okay, so we start out, we have put our margins in, so let's put 10, 5, and 2. You can see that the differential is reasonable, but these people, because they've got a $10 margin, are making a lot more money than us. So again, we've got to weigh that up. How can we compete? Low quality but fairly high clarity, not all that important. What if we spend a bit more on promotion? What's going to happen? Okay, so we've seen a slight increase, so 5,086 if I take it back out. So we go, okay, it's not worthwhile, they're not responsive to that. Okay, these players here, if they went up, for example, to $15, you can see there's a, that was 1,600 if I take it back. So they're losing a quarter of their sales, 400 sales, but they're gaining a much bigger margin. So you've got to think about how you want to compete, and it tests the sensitivities, etc. So a very effective tool to use. That's the forecasting one. If we go forward to the tools itself, we might go, okay, why did we get so many sales? I don't understand. When you get the results, so what you do is you pick a cell, say it's C10, and we can see that sales demand for round whatever it is, so it's round 2, you can see that's changing. Round 3, it keeps changing. Whatever round we're in, oh gee, why did we only get that much? And this will help you basically break down the sales. Okay, are there any adjacent cells, so sideways or up and down, that are free? Okay, there's nothing listed here, but there's obviously C10 has 3 cells next to it, so let's have a look. C10 is here, so it picks up that one, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it's picking up those 3 particular cells. Is there a player in there? Yes, there is. Okay, if there is, none of this extra sales transfer. Remember, on the information tab, we have this 25% of sales moving if it's not targeted. It'll move in any direction 25%. Okay, so somebody's in B10, so we don't get that. So the other 2, there's nothing in. So the actual total demand for this, for the cell, the total sales, will equal that amount. Okay, this actually tells us what the weightings are. So if I was to change that to F10, you can see everything adjusts. Gives me the same weightings. Alright, just change it even further. Just to. Okay, so now sales promotion is important. And if I go to a discount product, you can see that price is important. So these numbers will change as we go through. Okay, and the adjacent cells will change, and we have to make decisions. So make sure you get round, what round you're up to, and what's adjacent. Okay, that's just a bit of extra information. And then we have to input basically our decisions, where we're up to. So we just type over the top. There's some data there already. I'll just clear that. So basically we say what we had, 50% of quality, and out. So you take this off your results sheet, whatever your results were. Okay, we had that. Our competitor, oh gee, they had that, a bit more there, but a bit less there, and pretty bad there, but pretty good there. So you actually take that off the result sheet. Okay, and it'll actually tell you down here, you got 68% of that cell. We can put up to 5 teams here. The competitor got 32% of that cell. How was it calculated? It was calculated because we ended up with 49 points, which is basically that 50 times 10. That gives us 5 points. 40 times 10, that gives us another 4 points. Obviously, as we go down, all those points add up to 49. They have 23, and the market shares out of 72. Okay, all the points added together, and that's how it's calculated. Okay, we also pick up the profit margin, which is coming from that index which we've entered, and we can actually see the profit, and we can actually see the market share of profit rather than sales. So market share of sales, we're at 68%. They have a much bigger margin than us, so therefore they catch up a little bit in revenue, or quite a bit in revenue, and that's their revenue market share. So if you're ever confused about, gee, I thought we'd get more sales, that just helps you work out, how the cell is calculated. Okay, if we come across here, this is a helpful tool at the start of the game. Helps us map out the progression. So for example, we go back to our information, and obviously we want to start here in I2 if we're targeting the budget people, and we want to end up in G3. So we might be looking at other products where we want to progress through various cells over time. So this helps us plan this. So we actually map out the whole the whole year, the whole 8 rounds. So J2, and then we go to J3 and J4 and I4. I'm just making some stuff up here. I5 doesn't matter, just for example. And then we want to go to so say we somehow wanted to look at that particular path, we can see what will happen from a profit perspective. Okay, I've got to also enter our margin. So let's say we're going to be 14 and then 15. So we're going to change our price from time to time. Change our price from time to time. It's just a check to say, make sure we're entering the right amount. And basically what it tells me is in each of these rounds, so round 1 to 8, I will sell that many units, that amount over the total time. So this could be also helpful at the end of the game to review your performance and how a particular product mapped out. Our profit, which is based on our margin, the cost of the product, so this is what it costs to move it. Okay, so each time we're moving it, this is when it's new, and this is moves after that, so we're moving it 1 or 2 squares down here. We spend $2,000 per product, so it gives us our overall profit for the game. So this particular one branded product, one single product, has ended up making a total of $450,000 roughly. That's its revenue and that's our costs there. And basically it tells us our total profit, internal rate of return, which is very impressive, a huge net present value, and we got payback after year 1. So we only spent $22,000 up front. So for example, say we started with a more aggressive product, not that you would move it out and move it back. We can see that payback in this case is year 7 because we spent $180,000 up front and then we spent $70,000 moving it back. Obviously you wouldn't do that, but you would move it in one direction and then back in another direction. You'd be better off having a second product. But this assumes we have no competitors. This assumes we have the same results here, but with one competitor, so our sales are halved. Everything else stays the same. And here we have 2 competitors consistently in the cell. Okay, you can see the payback is 0, so it never gets paid back. So if we follow this pathway, we have no competitors in every time, we will do well. But if we have 1 or more competitors, we are going to lose money on that particular pathway. So it helps us plan the start of the year. From the start of the game, it helps us plan the product management. And like I said, at the end of the game, we can also help review how profitable it was if we wanted to do further analysis. So these are the tools. Okay, let's turn to the important part, the results. Obviously, the key outcome of the game is the results. So let's have a look at that very important part of the spreadsheet now. Okay, the results page is here, but keep in mind we put some pretend decisions in before. So I've got some teams sitting there already. So let's have a look at what happens. Okay, basically this is our results page, and again we've got round 1 and underneath is round 2, etc. all the way through. Okay, obviously I put all the decisions in brand B so we can see them, so nothing is happening for brand A for any particular team, and we can see total sales of brand B, which is the total sales for the company. If we had 2 brands, we'd have more there. Unit market share, our best performing product, what our margin is, which we put it in before, our profit as a result. This gives us our total gross profit. Then we have our various costs, the product development costs and positioning, our cost of $2,000 per product per round, and our sales promotion. And as we can see, each of these teams have basically invested money for the year. Then we have a ranking of profit and our accumulated budget and profits and what will be next year's budget. Remember, we started on 500,000 in reserves, so we've obviously dug into that. So it is possible to lose money in this game, but typically teams make money. Okay, underneath we have individual sales results. There's nothing in brand A, so we go down to brand B, and we can see for each of their 3 products, or 2 or 3 products, what their sales results are. Later in the game, over here, it actually lists the top 10 best-selling products. So obviously, if you have up against 10 teams and they can bring to market up to 20 products, it'd be helpful to see which ones are the best performing ones, because you might want to replicate or attack them. Okay, we have how many products they have, all the results of the scores repeated for you, just save you going back and forward, so you might want to print this whole page out. And then underneath we had a couple of simple graphs. So for the round, what are the unit sales? For the round, what's the profit contribution? And this one here, accumulated profits, is basically how we judge the winner of the game. So at the end of the 8 rounds, whoever's got the most accumulated profits over the 8 rounds is the best performing team. Now, to help us slightly, there's not a lot of data in it at the moment. Here's on the DB, this is dashboard. Okay, remember I copied some decisions down into round 2. So what will happen over time is this graph will self-populate. Okay, there's nothing sitting in it for round 3 and beyond as yet, but it gives us a couple of 6 extra tables. Sorry, I've just lost it. 6 extra tables, so we've got sales per round, so we can see how that's trending. So everybody's moving up, the market's getting bigger. Market share, okay, so it's always going to be a battle, so there's been a bit of a slight change there. Profit for the round, obviously we invested in first year, and I hadn't changed anything for round 2, so we don't have those costs. Accumulated profits, how many products, and how much they're selling on a per product basis. So there's 6 extra charts for you. You can do some further analysis if you like. The only thing you can change on this is you can ask it to look at just one round, for example, and whatever round we're up to. So at the end of the game, we keep that set at 8, but if you wanted to look at just the first 3 rounds to simplify the chart, remember you're going to have up to 10 teams here, so it gets a little bit complex. So that's the dashboard, which works with the results page. The last part of the spreadsheet is probably the most simplest to understand. It's our overall competitive map and our individual competitive targets. So let's have a look at that now. So these sit here. This is the map. Okay, and for each round we can see where the bulk of the market is. I'll just make that a little bit smaller so it's a bit easier to see. So we've got the whole market mapped out. For some slightly extra information, on the right hand side of it is where the competitors are, or the whole market is, not just competitors. You can see the value of the cells they're targeting and where the opportunities or the gaps are. Okay, and again, like normal, we've got up to all the rounds underneath, and we had some data in there before, some decisions that we put in. Because there's nothing in round 3, it looks like there's nothing there. That will self-populate as we go through. And related to that is targets. So we've got the same map, a little bit more squashed up so they fit in for each round for each team. So where is team 1? Where is team 2? So you can get a sense of the strategy of the various teams. Okay, so that's all the details on the simulation game. Remember, we've looked at how consumers make decisions, the various 4 factors, and how the segments will change in size over time. We looked at how you fill in the decision sheet and how you've got to watch your budget spend. We looked at using the forecast and scenario testing against a small competitive set, and even mapping out the future of the product. Plus, you can review how sales were allocated in a particular cell for a particular round. Obviously, we had a look at the results spreadsheet, which is where the winners and losers will lie. And then finally, we had a quick look at the maps and targets. So I hope you enjoy playing the game, and I hope you get a lot of value out of it.